welcome to the third episode of Mental Wealth Podcast with myself, Jerry McGuinness. Today is Monday, the 3rd of December. My God, where's the year gone, folks? I don't know about you, but for me, it's absolutely fucking flying in, which is a good and a bad thing, I suppose. I don't feel like I quite got to live a lot of this year, but sure, listen, it's nearly Christmas now, we won't complain. I think what we're going to cover off today was a very good subject because I asked people on Facebook what would they like to see covered on the next podcast, because the first two episodes were quite heavy. There were my story and Richie's story, which was tough to listen to from anyone's perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it up going forward. So some weeks I'll do um self help and different therapies and what's out there, and how to about going the right, maybe going about the right way of the type of therapy you may feel you might need, or who you may need to speak to first, all that sort of thing. I'm also going to cover off CBT, mindfulness, because they have played a huge part in my life in regards to, semi-recovering. But today, the topic is going to be mental health in the workplace, your rights as an employee, and I will cover off some equality in there as well. Okay, and this is all going to come directly from the Equality Authority. Okay, so I'm hoping this one won't be as long as previous podcasts, hopefully around 40 minutes. So let's just dive right in either way, and let's see what we get through. Okay, so first of all, I put up a poll on my Facebook page. Um, how willing would you be to tell one of your boss or your peers in work that you have a mental health problem? And it's pretty much split 50-50 at the minute, with the no kind of inching its way ahead a small bit. And people explain some of the reasons, and I'm not surprised because I've experienced those reasons to some level. Okay, and I think one of the very first ones is, first of all, you being able to judge what your manager or your peer says. You're a bit afraid of how they might react. Would you be overseen for promotions? Do you think that they won't be able to trust you with certain workloads? That type of thing will be playing on your mind. Okay, but at the same time, one of the things that you'll learn going throughout the years and the different forms of therapy and so forth, you're not a mind reader. Okay, so stop reading, trying to read people's mind and trying to put words or context in there that of something that doesn't even exist, that hasn't been said. Okay, you just don't know how people are going to react. I've told certain people, and I was shocked by their reaction to me. You'd be very surprised of how many support me, how many have either family, friends, um, all sorts of loved ones in their life that have had mental health issues to some degree. Okay, so again, trust was one of the main things. And second of all was, again, being looked over when it comes to promotions, or even getting a job in general. Are you open about it from your first point of interview, or do you have it on your CV and so forth, or do you wait till you're permanent in there for a while, permanent, and then if it becomes an issue where it's disrupting work, then do you be open with it? Because again, from our side, folks, as employees, we have a duty of care in ourselves to report that, if the stress is getting to you, if it's overloaded, if you're not able to keep up, if it's just not helping, and if it's making your mental health issues work, or even being the cause of it, you need to speak up. Because at the end of the day, I kind of see it from both sides, where employees, you're a little bit reluctant, but as team leaders and managers and directors and all sorts of managers out there, they're not mind readers either. If you're going missing from work, or you're taking half days, you're not showing up at times, it looks bad unless you try and explain it to some degree. Because you'd be very surprised at how they react. You will get some that may not react well, and you will get some that react, amazingly. But you just don't know, okay, until you literally rip that band-aid off. Okay, so where we kind of will jump in here is, another reason there was, you don't know if you can, trust the managers and trust the peers. Will they be talking about you? Will stuff be said? Will you be treated differently? You will find that for what I have found and what other people on the page have found from responses, is that they have found that they've been treated differently once they've been told about it. Without it being made to obvious from the manager's point of view. It's obvious to you. Okay, so let's just dive in. Okay, so this all comes directly from the mental health, or sorry, equality and mental health, what the law means for your workplace. Okay, so let's just have a quick look here, and that comes from the Equality Authority. Okay, based in Tipperary there. So let's have a quick read of what it is. Now I'm reading from, basically a leaflet on their website, because I knew a lot about this, but I'm not really good at explaining things or putting words in the right, putting the right structure together to explain it. So I think that reading from this may be a little bit of help. Okay, so excuse me. So it starts off and it says, this leaflet is for employers. Okay, first of all, it is for the information and is not a legal document. It explains the legal requirement under the equality law of employers to provide reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities, and what that may mean for employees with mental health difficulties. Understanding reasonable accommodation, as it is defined in equality law, has benefits for employers and for employees with experience of mental health difficulties. So as I said, this is not going to be a biased one way from an employee's point of view. It's kind of going to cover both, because as you will see as I get into this, is it's actually nearly more beneficial for the employer to employ this than anyone. And I'll explain that why. So what this leaflet explains is how reasonable accommodation practices can help both employers and employees, just like I was saying there. Employers' obligations under the Forced Employment Equality Acts to employees with experience of mental health difficulties. What reasonable accommodation in the workplace means. And then the next one is the role that reasonable accommodation can play in supporting employers to prevent discrimination in the workplace. Okay, so reasonable accommodation. How reasonable accommodation can help everyone. Reasonable accommodation practices which benefit employees with experience of mental health difficulties can have a positive, now listen to that, a positive outcome for all employees and employers themselves. For example, reducing the stress in the workplace is good for everyone's mental health. It is also good for business outcomes. A stress-free workplace helps employers to maintain maximum productivity and retain the staff. Whoa, that's brilliant. Reasonable accommodation practices help employers to the following: enhance business outcomes by maximising the engagement and skill of employees in the workplace, creating a positive working environment that is free from discrimination. You will retain skilled staff, promote equality, and fulfil obligations set out in the Employer Equality Acts. That's actually quite good, that. It's about, promoting a positive working environment for people, because if you're creating a stress-free, and not an easy going, but a stress-free kind of working environment for your employees, they're going to appreciate that. They're going to work that little bit harder. They're going to, be easier to manage. They'll respond to you better, and they'll build a lot of trust. So coming from both sides, and then you get from an employer side to things, they're going to go maximum productivity, as well as keeping your employees happy and looking at keeping your own stress levels down. So it's great for everyone. So let's have a quick look here, right? So what else does it say here? So, okay, often the greatest barrier that employees and potential employees with experience of mental health difficulties encounter is the attitude that others have towards mental health difficulties. Ain't that the truth? If they lack knowledge or understanding about a disability or mental health condition, employers and co-workers may have fears and concerns. Unfortunately, the lack of knowledge or understanding can manifest as prejudice or bias against employees with disabilities, including employees with experience of mental health difficulties. The organisations listed at the back of this leaflet can provide information about mental health issues. We'll have a look at that, see if it's there, and I'll put the link in the bio or something like that, or I'll just call you out the link and you can look it up. So what does the law say? The Employment Equality Acts 1998 to 2011 ban employment-related discrimination linked to any of the 9 grounds named in the law. So If you want to have a look at the 9 grounds named in the law, maybe look them up, because this is only going to cover mainly mental health and equality. Okay. At the same time, the Equality Status Acts 2000 to 2011 ban discrimination of any of the 9 grounds when a person is buying goods or using services. This leaflet concentrate on employment-related issues. Disability is one of 9 grounds included in the equality law. The definition of disability includes physical, intellectual, physical, intellectual, learning, cognitive. Okay, so there you have there. It's yourself with your mental health problem. Okay, if you have problems, focusing, understanding, anxiety, depression, or even emotional stabilities is one of them, and a range of other medical conditions. It covers people with experience of mental health difficulties. It applies if they are currently experiencing mental health difficulties, or if their experience of mental health difficulties was in the past. For example, under the Employment Equality Acts, if a person applies for a promotion, you cannot discriminate against them because of their current or past of mental health difficulties. The application of equality law to people with mental health difficulties is broad. For example, in one case, the equality officer found that depression, stress, and anxiety all fall within the meaning of disability defined in the equality legislation. The case reference is, if you want to look this up, it's a DEC-E 2007-025. Full details are available from the Equality Tribunal website, www.equalitytribunal.ie. Okay, so the aspects of employment which are covered under the Employment Equality Acts include advertising, equal pay, access to employment, vocational training and work experience, terms and conditions of employment, promotion or regrading, classification of posts, dismissal, and collective agreements. Okay, so how does the law define discrimination in the workplace? Discrimination has a specific meaning in equality law. In the Employment Equality Acts, the definition of discrimination focuses on whether a person has been treated less favourably in the workplace than another person in similar situation or on any of the 9 grounds included in the disability. Okay, so basically it's important to remember, that discrimination can be direct or it can be indirect. Okay, and basically, while direct discrimination is often, say, more obvious, indirect discrimination has a similar impact on employees, including those with experience of, say, mental health difficulties. Indirect discrimination can happen when organisations' policies and practices have negative consequences for some people. For example, indirect discrimination can occur if a policy or practice which is applied to all employees has the effect of putting an employee at a disadvantage because of his or her mental health difficulties. Okay, and what's very, very important for what I've just gone through there, okay, just remember, depression, stress, and anxiety all fall within the meaning of disability defined in equality legislation. Okay, so I think what we look at from that then is employers, they're basically obliged to make, reasonable accommodation. Okay, so what does the law say about reasonable accommodation and what does it mean in the practice? Okay, under the Employment Equality Acts, employers are obliged to make reasonable accommodations so that employees who have disability, including people with experience of mental health difficulties, can, number one, have access to employment. Okay, so there's number one. And that's touching on one of the ladies on my website, on my Facebook page, that is quite open about it from the get-go, where employers, and when she's in interviews, and she says that if they don't accept me from the start, then it's really, it's not, what's that right word? They don't deserve me. Which I agree, 100%. However, that's an ideal world. This is not an ideal world. So, it's up to yourself when it comes to that. So another one is participating in or advance in employment. So if you're going for promotions, you're not overlooked because you either have or have had mental health difficulties, and undertake training. So if you're looking to be coached and trained more within work, that you're seen as basically the same level as everyone else. Just because you have a mental health problem, you're not more of entitlement to training, etc., so forth, than anyone else in that job. Okay. So under the Employment Equality Act's reasonable accommodation is known as appropriate measures, which means the same thing. Appropriate measures including putting in place supports and special facilities for an employee who has a disability, including someone with experience of mental health difficulties. This must take into account the specific disability related needs of an employee. Many employers are familiar with taking appropriate measures to accommodate the needs of employees with physical disabilities, such as adapting equipment or premises. However, employers also need to consider whether there are appropriate measures which they could take to support, and listen to this, an employee with experience of mental health difficulties. Okay? So physical disability and a mental disability need to be basically taken the same approach. Okay, is what it's saying here. So just remember another key point from that is under the Employment Equality Act's reasonable accommodation is known as appropriate measures. Okay, so what sort of practice is included in reasonable accommodation? Oh, dear me, still slurring my words. Apologies, folks. So reasonable accommodation in the practice can include time off to attend medical appointments. So if you have, therapy or GPs, that sort of thing. Mentoring and peer support within the workplace. Okay, consulting with an employee in order to accommodate their return to work. Adjusting an employee's attendance hours or allowing them to work at home. So basically being more flexible. Okay, relieving an employee of certain tasks and substitute other equivalent duties in consultation with the employee. So I know in my past I was really struggling in sales and so forth. So I added a second layer of account management and so forth. So it gave me a different sort of focus, and I got involved in other little side projects and so forth to just kind of take the burden of sales all the time. And although I was doing bits of sales and I was doing other stuff, which obviously made me feel a little bit better about myself, and it helped me to upskill as well in a certain way. So you can look at that from two ways. Oh, are they taking these duties off me because I suffer with mental health issues, or are they doing it to help me, to support me? Okay. So, provision of relevant training to support the employee to carry out their duties. It may be useful to get additional advice. With the agreement of the employee, the employer's doctor, an occupational health specialist, a mental health service, or a mental health support group. Now, a key thing there, okay, and it's happened to me umpteen times going through jobs, is that when you do declare that you have a mental health issue, okay, it's in with the company's duty of care that they will send you to their company doctor. Okay, which obviously you'll have to sit down, you'll have to basically go through everything with them, and they will send a report back to your job. Whether, first of all, are you fit for work, are you not fit for work? Okay, and other supports that maybe that they need to do on their end then. So when they get the report back, they can assess what they can possibly do to help support you more going further. Okay, and obviously it covers their own arses as well. If anything was to happen to you and you were on site and you weren't supposed to be. Okay, so it just helps cover them as well as you. Okay, you can look at it from both ways. So, yeah, if you look at it from a good way, it does help a lot. And I've been to a couple of company doctors. Some were dickheads, some weren't. And then I know one of the managers that did send me genuinely wanted to help me and give me the right support. And he understood, so it's not always going to be bad, folks. So don't always see it as bad, okay? So reasonable accommodation does not mean that an employer has to recruit, promote, retain, or provide training to a person who does not have the capacity to do a particular job. However, an employer cannot decide that a person with a disability is incapable of doing a particular job without considering whether there are appropriate measures which they could take to support the person to carry out the required duties. So, if you feel an employee is struggling, basically, okay, are you doing everything you can to help support that person before writing them off from that job completely? Or putting them on improvement plans and all their sorts of, putting them on a PIP, a person, improvement plan. But you need to look at these things first before you just go, oh no, you can't do that anymore, I'm taking you off that. Okay? Ask them, what do they find might help them? Ask the employee. How else are you going to know? So, a key thing from that is reasonable accommodation practices can have a positive outcome for everyone, employees and employers. Okay? So, the employer does not have to put in place appropriate measures which would impose, no, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. No, I don't think I can pronounce this word, folks. Oh my god, oh my, disproportionate burden on the organisation. The particular circumstance of an employer are taken into account, including the cost of putting in place appropriate measures, the resources available to the employers, and the possibility of attaining funding. Okay, so basically, if we look at it right, let's go and talk about disclosure. Okay, so what is disclosure? I could probably explain this a couple of different ways, but what I'll do is I'll try and stick to what I'm looking at here and just tell you from my own experience from both employer and employee. In order to know which appropriate measures to put in place, employers need to understand the practical needs of people with disabilities, including people with experience of mental health difficulties. Equality legislation does not mean it does not require a person to disclose that they have a disability. Mental health difficulties are not always visible. Here, okay? And that's a key thing. They're not always visible, and people are often reluctant to disclose. Okay, so that's what I was saying at the start, folks. It's very hard for people to look at you and notice that you have a mental health problem because, we all wear masks. And at the same time, don't go mad at them for not understanding that you have a mental health problem, because if you don't tell these people, they don't know. Okay? There may already be employees, with experience of mental health difficulties in your workplace. So it's important to consider policies and practices in relation to all employees. So that's a key thing as well. Don't be surprised that if you do open up, you might find some of your managers, some of your peers, some of family, some of friends have either had experience of mental health difficulties or have someone in their life that has experience with them. Okay, so just don't be surprised. Employees are more likely to disclose that they have experience of mental health difficulties if they are confident that they will not be discriminated against if they do so. Employers can make it easy for the employees to disclose by, right, number one, and I know this, is creating trust with the employees. If that employee does not trust you and doesn't believe doesn't believe in your integrity, that you will keep it strictly between you and them, and obviously to the medical teams that you may need to refer them to, and HR and so forth. If they don't feel that you can keep that close knit and understand that you're listening to them and that you're there to support them, they're not going to disclose this information. Okay, I would not speak to anyone that I didn't trust. Now I do, because I've a pain in my fucking bollocks with the whole stigma and around mental health, and basically being discriminated in previous jobs because of my mental health issues. Now it wasn't openly discriminated against, but trust me, I know I was. Okay. So you put in place clear policies and practices relating to assessing the needs of the employees and making reasonable accommodation and making employees aware that these exist. So not only do you, when you discuss it with them, you let them know what is in place to support them. Okay, if anything, and if not, maybe we can look at something. Ensuring that application forms and medical assessments processes do not discriminate. So, it doesn't just highlight, do you have a mental health difficulty? It'd be more like what sort of disability or health issues are you having? Okay. Before requesting information about disabilities, employers should think about, number one, why they need the information. Number two, what they will do with the information. Okay. What information they need, when they need the information, who needs to know this information, how they need to be informed, and how they will store the information. An employer may need to know about functional issues such as whether someone is on medication. Okay, I agree. that they make that makes them drowsy, but may not need to know the person's diagnosis. Okay. So if don't be surprised if trust me, sometimes you wear your emotions on your face, as they say. Okay. Um, like I'll say to the missus, she'll say to me, "How you feeling?" I'll say, "Grand." She'll say, "Tell your face that," you know. And it makes me laugh every time because she just fucking brilliant how she comes across. No bullshit. Um, so again, don't be surprised if you're approached to say, you know, are you struggling? Is there anything you want to talk about? Don't take that offensive, okay? Information about an employee's experience of mental health difficulties is sensitive and personal data. Data protection laws provides a guidance on who needs to know certain information and how to store it securely. Okay, if you want to know a bit more about that, see www.dataprotection.ie. So let's just have a quick look here, right? Where can I get more information on all of this? Further information on the equality legislation is available on the Equality Authority website, www.equality.ie. Useful information to start with this is your employment rights, um, plain English guide to Employment Acts 1998 to 2011. Your equality status rights explained, plain English guide to the Equal Status Acts 2002 2011. Okay, the National Disability Authority, www.nda.ie. Okay, so let's just see what we have here. So what we're going to look at here, and so just from that, the key point to take from that is contact the Equality Authority or see change for more information. Right, so that's pretty much everything from that handout. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this in the bio, or if any of you want to contact me on Facebook, I will private message you this document. I'm not sure if you can share documents themselves on Facebook, but I will check that. But either way, you know, I'll get this across to you. Even on YouTube, I'll try to put the link into where I found it on the website. It's quite handy, quite useful. Okay, so that's basically everything from that PDF. Is it PDF? Yeah, it is a PDF. So where will we go from here? I do have a couple of different avenues I want to go in, but I just want to make sure that I want to keep this podcast kind of flowy. Okay, so that's the HR jargon, let's say, done away with. So now let's have a look from my own experience. Right. So what I found was in the past I couldn't hide it. Okay, I was getting to a point where it was disrupting my work life. It was disrupting my private life, and it was all a combination together. You know the way they say, leave your troubles at home. You know, you have a different face when you come to work. You have the work Jerry, and you have the personal life Jerry. When you have a mental health problem, you can't separate the two as much as you try. You may be able to do it to a certain extent, but the more you try and, you know, keep going and going and going, it can snowball on you. I'm not saying it will. Some people it does work for throwing themselves into work. I know work is a great distraction for me and has been huge in to where I am right now in regards to recovery, which is not a hell of a lot, but it's not 0 out of 10. It's more like 3 or 4 out of 10. But it's been a huge kind of refocus for me, and I'm doing well and so forth there now, you know, and I've kind of paved my own kind of career path in a way that, and this is not me saying, oh, I'm good at this and that. It's taken a lot of work. I've put the groundwork in. I've been here. I've done that before. I've been in the trenches, you know, and things are kind of looking up that way, right? But no matter what or what level it is, we can always be doing more in the workplace to help people with mental health disabilities. Okay, so I was pretty open about it going back about 7 or 8 years ago. And at the time, my team leader at the time, she kind of knew I wasn't right, but I was only ever going through a bit of a bad breakup, so she kind of put it down to that. And I was putting it down to that at the time as well. Little did I know there was a much bigger problem. And she was really, really good about, you know, let me go home early and so forth, asked me how I was doing. We'd go out for chats and so forth. And like just before they knew that it was like before I even disclosed mental health problems, right? It was only when I'd say I went to work in a different section, let's say, and I went to work under a new manager, which I still give props to this day, because it was more so at the time. It was just, how you doing? What's happening in your life? Is there anything that I can do? Is there anything that you feel you can do, or you know, what works for you and stuff? And at the time, I didn't really appreciate. Well, I did. I no, I did, definitely did appreciate what she was doing for me at the time, and I'll never forget it, and I never have. And I learned a lot from it. Okay, because over time and so forth, I stuck at what I was doing. I kept going and kept going, and then I was promoted to like an acting team leader for like 6 to 8 months and so forth, and it was that team leader at the time, that sales manager, that recommended me to, and she saw faith in me, and the manager above saw faith in me, so I was doing pretty well. I was at the kind of I was getting through the hard times, let's say, and I was making, but work was a huge distraction for me. As much as my private life was in shit, work was a huge distraction. It was the one thing where I could go at the time and just leave everything behind and just focus on that. But again, the more I kept blocking the other part out, it kept bubbling and bubbling up in the background, and then it all kind of came to a head. So yeah, I remember what led me to disclose everything was one day I was attacked one Halloween, and some people listen to this may remember it because they were there. But just me being silly. I was just chatting to a couple of people at like the bonfire outside the me man's gaff in Finglas, and I just got a smack, and one of the missus's friends had to grab me. Said I was falling back in towards the fire. Now I was like, what? Well, it turned out that someone had hit me with only a bottle of Bummers, broke me jaw, and I remember I was like, what the fuck? And I walked off, and I'm not gonna lie, like I was crying. My eyes now were watering. I was like, "What is that? What's after happening? Why did it happen?" And so forth. And anyway, next day I got up, went into work. My jaw was sore. I went to A&E that night. They were like, "Just 13 hours waiting." I was like, "Fuck off! I'm going home." So I went home, took painkillers, went to bed. Got up next morning, just thought I had a swollen jaw. Just bruised. Ended up going to work, and they said, "Yeah, listen, man, that sounds like something's really wrong. If you can't open your mouth that far, go get it X-rayed." I went to one of those VHI Swift Care places, and they X-rayed the jaw. Yeah, it's fractured. You may need just go into the hospital there, and just they'll clip it. They'll open up your jaw. They'll just slice it open. You'll be numb. They'll slice it open, put a little clip in, and keep. Yeah, no, that's not how it worked. I was 3 days waiting in a hospital bed, fasting for most of them. Um, and I ended up going into theatre and getting my jaw fixed. So they put a metal plate in there with screws. There were screws in my gums and so forth. So my whole energy levels were gone from not eating. I was at the having this trauma, this surgery. And when I went back to work, it was all just too much for me. I went back in the day after the operation, which was a major no, but I used it as a distraction, as I was saying. So anyways, I went in, and things just got worse and worse. I was falling behind on work. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't focus, was becoming irritable. Just was turning into kind of mean, let's say, at the time, because I was my tolerance towards people. It just everything was just bubbling up in me, and I didn't understand why. And anyways, I broke down one day, and I told my manager and the sales and the operations manager at the time, and they got me someone. They got me to meet with someone. Said, "Listen, we have your support. You're a great person. You're this. You're that. Great father. We admire you. All this type of stuff. Just you may need a bit of help, and I appreciated that fully. Okay." And one of the operations manager now it passed away. God rest her soul. But she was very supporting at the time. So anyway, over time, um, I went to that therapist once, and it was more of a counselor, and it was just like, no, this is not for me. Um, it was down on Sheriff Street, I think. They sent me to a place in Sheriff Street. Anyway, so they were very supportive, okay, and things kind of got better over time in work. Even though my private life was shit, and I was going to see, like, I went to see fucking hypnotists and everything in Dunleary, a couple of sessions, thinking that they'd be able to hypnotise me out. There's not a fucking hope, not a hope. Didn't do fuck all. Sitting in the chair, and he's listening to this and that. It's not more about putting you in like a trancy state, like you see on the fucking David Copperfield or fucking Keith Barry or some shit like that, or whatever. or Darren Brown or whatever. It was nothing like that. It was more like you're going to be more aware to everything, more aware to your senses, the noises that's going around, and be more aware to being open and your thoughts and so forth. So, anyways, I was talking away, nothing helped. Kept going to therapies, nothing helped. Started signing up with a psychotherapist. I was going there once a week, and it was costing me a fortune, like 70 quid a week each session for an hour. And it was just more, it's on me spilling out my fucking whole life and just sitting there. The therapist saying, yeah. And the odd time I might get a sentence or two over. Now, she was a good therapist, you know, like deep down, but that wasn't the type of therapy for me. That wasn't what I needed. I needed practical, I needed CBT basically, but CBT was only new onto the market kind of then, you know, it was a new wave, and this was more psychotherapy. It was more like looking at everything, you know, going into it in great detail, which is what wasn't what I needed, you know. What I feel like wasn't needed. I can't remember. I can't remember. I've talked about my childhood, my past, everything so many times, and nothing was helping. I was went to that therapist for about 2 years, and nothing was kind of helping until I saw a documentary one night. I think it was Ray Darcy did it on RTE one night about St. Pat's and all this type of mental health sort of things. And I was like, whoa, I was like, maybe I do need to be on medication. Maybe that can help. And that's when I did go down the line of seeing proper medication now. And then over time that did fucking help. And I was like, yes, amazing. So what I'm saying is that when it comes to being open in your workplace, just don't be surprised the level of support that you may get. You know, is that manager a dick because they're struggling with mental health issues? You just don't know. Okay, so just be open to it is all I'm saying. Okay, at the end of the day, if they discriminate or they have a problem against you, now I mean this in the nicest way possible, but fuck them. Okay? They do not deserve you if they're not willing to accept you for who you are. Uh, don't get me wrong, they have a business to run, you know, there may be money banking on it, you know, it might be costing them, but why just give up on someone? You know, offer them the right support. People feel more appreciated. You know, 70% of people that leave their jobs leave it because of poor management. So imagine if they to turn that around their head and show more level of support for people like ourselves, or even people in general that may be having any sort of issues. You know, you'd be very surprised at the reaction you get out of someone that's more willing to, oh, you're supporting me, like, you know, just finding comfort in that person. Just like finding a therapist or a gym instructor. You know, if you trust them, you're gonna want to stay with them. You're gonna want to go the extra mile. Okay, and you'll be more open and you'll discuss with them. So that was so I think over time though, as those managers moved on and I moved on into other parts of the company and that, and other managers found out. Now another manager that there was quite nice to me. He was sound, he was, and he had a member of the family, so he had a lot of experience with it, and he was very supportive. Offered me all sorts of help. You know, he was really really good. Gave me time off to go to a therapist and so forth. So and he knows who he is. You know, he was one of him and that other lady. I won't mention her name, but they were two of the most positive people to help me in the workplace. Okay. Then I went on. I started working under the new manager. He was just an absolute dickhead. And what I mean by that is he may have acted like he was being nice, made it seem like they had my best interests at heart. But let me tell you, when I moved from one part of the company to another, I had to renew a 3-year contract, and at the end of that 3 years, they let me go. I missed a good bit of time now. I won't deny that with it being in and out of hospital with mental health issues, but the support wasn't put in place. Like when I came out, I was kind of just thrown back into work. You know, I did go back gradually over days and weeks and so forth, but targets weren't adjusted. You know, it was just basically the figure was still the figure. I hit that, and it was stressful. You know, and I was catching up on everything. So there was one or two guys that were helping me while I was off. So, and I actually bought one of the lads a bag of cans in true Irish style, English style. I bought him a bag of cans to appreciate the help. Um, but yeah, that guy, he's just no interested. I just don't think I was his type of person. You know, they didn't get me humour, didn't get anything really. They didn't. So anyway, called me and let me go. And I was like, I went to my car and started crying my eyes. I was like, what am I going to do? You know, I use this as a distraction. It gets me up now to bed every morning. So, anyways, I went and got a job with a different, in a different sort of a category altogether. Let's say different environment completely, and it took me a little while to settle in. Lads, they were all sound in the office. Things were going well, and when I look back at it now, I think I was a little bit silly to leave. But now, what I mean by that is at the time and what I've been over through the last couple of years, it was like when I left that company, I was telling them that I was struggling and I just wasn't, they wanted me to fly to the UK or the office and all. I don't do well traveling by myself. I'm quite a fucking, I know it's a hard to say, but I don't like venturing too far away from the wife or family. Um, but it was just, and I was getting too much, and I was working in town. I was in and out on buses every day, and then I was going to the gym, getting up at 5, going to the gym at 6, and it was all just taking a toll on me. So I just got a job offer one day from this manager that I'd worked for in Aircom. Was it Aircom at the time? Yeah, I was at the working for a manager in Aircom. Air now. Shout out to the folks in Air if they're listening. And he asked me, he says, "Come on, I'm in the new company here. Come work here with us. Here's, more money, better hours, everything, And it was all looking positive. So I left the other job and I went to this job, and I was like, shit. I think I made a mistake here because I finished up the old job and I wasn't starting in the new job for another week, and it was just like a week of sitting at home, and then everything just started to a knock-on effect from there. Just all negative thoughts started to come in. I stopped going to the gym, and also it just snowballed on me, but it was fucking fast. It was like a switch overnight, just like a really fast snowball. And I'm still trying to recover even to this day, and it's 3 years later. But when I was in there, I did open up to that boss again. And, so he knew about it, and he was like offering me support, everything, and he believed in me, and he said, "You ever didn't believe in you, I wouldn't have you here." And it was great to hear those words. So anyway, I ended up he moved on. I got a new boss in, pretty nice to start off with. Offered me some great support, let me go home early and stuff like that. I knew I was struggling. And I won't say anything more because it's when I look back at it now, I may have been a little bit paranoid about the negativity around it, but there was a lot of times when people were brought into, like, one of my best friends. I got him a job there, and I was told about people, managers saying certain things about me behind my back, and I trust this guy in my life, and it was all starting to get so. I think I lasted about a year there. I was out for a lot of the year because of this. I ended up back in hospital, and my contract wasn't renewed, which I was fine with. I didn't want to work for a company that was treating me that way. I was hitting good numbers and everything, even though I was still shit. I was seeing a mindfulness therapist and so forth over that way on my own time, in my lunchtime. And, it wasn't appreciated, and I was just I was made feel like less of a person than I am. So I said, no, fuck this. I'm getting too old in the tooth to be fucking playing this game. So, anyways, things didn't improve, got worse and worse and worse. Ended up in multiple hospital admissions for the best part of 2 years nearly. Well, a year. No way. It was the best part of 2 years, but I was out of work for about a year, and I decided to do my own photography in that time and try and earn my own money that way. But it was becoming more challenging than I thought, and I wasn't helping. So I ended up going to this new job that I'm in at the minute. It was a steep learning curve. Different environment, different side of people, different personalities, but. And I have been open with my sales manager in particular, and he has been supportive to a certain extent. Where I did tell him, and nothing has been said since in a good way. And in this time, over the last, say, 6 months since I told him and so forth, I've worked my ass off, and I was promoted, to a team leader level. So in that sense, it did pick up, and I was open and honest with him because I said, like, listen, it's not fair that I'm missing some time and there's days when I'm off and so forth, but this is what's going on. And he appreciated. He said, I just wish that you would have told me sooner because we were thinking all sorts. So you want to work here and so forth, but I actually did, and I do like working with the guys and so forth. So, the people that I work with at the minute, we started off as a small outfit, but now things are expanding, but it's still we have our own little culture and that and there, so it is good, you know, and we know you get the job done, but we also have a bit of laughing there as well to get through the day. So there's a nice little balance in there. So things have picked up in that sense. So what I'm trying to say to you is, although I've had some really horror stories with being open about it in the workplace, I also have some positive ones. And the positive ones have been great, and all I'm saying is, only you know your manager. But you don't know for 100% what the reply or the outcome is going to come from that. Or even if you went above them and went to the likes of HR and so forth. Okay, just let's say you really don't know the reaction until it happens. And this is going back to this whole mind reading side of things. Although we could nearly think, or we could nearly put our finger on what will happen, just what if it was different? What if they offered you support? What if they explained to you, or they could relate to you in a certain way? Think about it from that way. And again, if the life has been made hard on you because of it, there are certain routes you can go that get that looked at. But don't complain for not being treated right if you're not open about it, because they don't know what's going on. And at the same time, don't push your employees too far, because you don't know what they're going through. Pull them aside. What's the simple question? Say, how are things in your life? How is there things around here that could be less stressful on you? Is there anything I can do to help you? Little things. Just show them you care. But you have to be willing to genuinely care about them. The best feedback you'll get in life is feedback from your employees or your peers. Okay? Never stop learning. Never stop the will to learn. Okay? What was it Ricky Gervais said? Never be afraid of moving forward. Always be afraid of standing still. So what can we do? Okay. So from an employee side of things, think of a couple of things you can do. So one, can you be more open about it if you need to be? Is it disrupting your your daily life? Have you found, if you know someone on your team that may be struggling, maybe speak to them offside and say, listen, you're not the only one. You'll be very surprised how other people can find comfort in, you being able to relate to them. Okay? Get involved as like a peer side of things, where if you know of somebody struggling in work, get involved to be the person that can help them, maybe relieve some of the workload off them, take on some more for them. I'm not saying overstress yourself over their workload. I'm just saying little tiny adjustments, like even getting that person to go for a cup of tea with you in a quick chat. I'm telling you, it's the little things that add up, But we have to get this culture of caring about people in our workplace. Like, if the one thing I look for now, or that I've been looking for, and what I would hope people that come to work with us or work with me look for, is to be cared about, to be treated more than just a number in a job, to help shape a company and shape a culture rather than just joining one. That's what I find, anyway. And getting to know them. What are their goods? What do they like? What do they not like? What do they find difficult? What do they not find difficult? Anything. Learn from them. They learn from you. It builds the trust, builds support. And this is just my take on it, by the way, folks. This is not all gospel. This is just from what I've gone through. So, maybe just going forward, from your side, be a little bit more open about it. From an employer's side of things, you need to take a look underneath it and see if you look and say, what, now that you mention it, that person could be struggling. What's wrong with you doing a one-to-one with each person and saying, how are you finding things? How's your private life? Like, not how is your private life, how are things in life going for you? Show interest in their private life. But genuinely, don't ask it just for the sake of asking it. Be interested. People are interesting as fuck, man. Imagine if we were all the same type. Imagine if there wasn't people out there that struggled. The world would be a boring fucking place, man. You'd learn from nobody. You know? You'd have no one to look up to that have been through shit in their lives, that have come through. You'd have none of that inspirational sort of people in your life. Look at some of the biggest inspirational leaders in the world have come from, you know, through some of the most difficult times in their lives. Okay, so don't be afraid to get to know your employee, get to know their goes about what they're struggling with, what they're not struggling with. You know, is there anything that you can do? Is there anything that they think they may be able to do to help you to understand them more or help them with their job? You know, obviously promote a positive working culture. So not one where people are backbiting behind people's backs and so forth. Encourage people to be open and to admit that there's space for failure. But it's what we do from the failure, whether we learn from it, that we grow, and that it won't happen next time. That's how people improve. We improve from our mistakes. Fail, first attempt at learning. First attempt in learning. So, just promote a culture where aim to be 1% better every day and enjoy the process. I'm telling you, people will respond to that. People will react to that in a positive way. And you will get that extra, say, 10 or 15% out of them. You know? And plus as well, it builds trust. It builds relationships. So they may not see it as a comfort for, I have to grow up now and go into this job or whatever. No, grow up now, see the folks and work, get my job done, get paid. You know, I feel like a sense of purpose when in the job rather than just collecting a wage. Okay, so obviously from the employer side of things, you know, you have to make accommodations. You know, you may need to assess targets and so forth. Make sure that the right supports are put in place for your employees if they are going through difficult times. And also, you know, what you can do to help them. Encourage people to be open and honest about any difficulties they may be having, whether it's mental, physical, any sort of things. Just promote a positive working culture, a working environment. I'm telling you, I'd like to work for a company. Like, a lot of the time, people will work more for to make them feel like they matter more so than money. You know, expose that. You know, look at it for what it is. People will work harder if they like you. Simple as, or they like the company, and if they like what they're doing. So there's a couple of things in there, but you can't have them all. Why not? Why not? But employees, don't take the piss. If you're missing a lot of the time and your boss wants to know why, try to be open. Just don't play that fucking cat and mouse game, because it's going to end with you end up hating each other. The trust will be damaged, everything, and it just won't. And the chances are, if you do it across one company, it does not say you do it across the next. But employers, you have got to build a safe environment where you can build trust with your employees. Yeah, so going forward, I think what we'll do is each week I might ask people for a topic that they would like covered off, just like I did with this week, and we'll try and explore, and I'll try and come up with as much and as best the information as possible. Okay, if there's anything you're unsure of, or if you just want to reach out to me for a chat or anything whatsoever, I'm on Facebook, Jared McGuinness. You'll see the link. The first two episodes again are up on YouTube and Facebook. So feel free to have a listen. And if you have a story or if you have any troubles or anything whatsoever that you would like to share and what you think may help people, listen, I'll provide you with the mic and the cameras. When I say cameras, I use the camera for recording sound. But I'll provide you with the microphone. We can have a chat about it, just like I did if you listen to Richie's story there, episode 2. We'll just have a chat. We'll just go through it, and trust me, you'll be surprised of how many people you will get good feedback from or good comments from, and that will reach out to you to say that you have helped, or that they too have a similar story to yours. So just be a little bit more open with it in that way. So if you have a story you'd like to tell, come chat to me. We'll get the story across. We'll banish the stigma one story at a time. Folks, again, thank you very much for listening. This is the third episode of Mental Wealth Podcast. I look forward to doing more from you. So if this is helpful or has been helpful, or you think it might help someone, please like and share, get it onto them, because at the end of the day, that's all what we're all about here, is trying to promote health, mental health, as much as possible. Because when it comes to mental wealth, your mental wealth is all the wealth that you need in the world. Have a good night, folks.